And we are rolling. So, what's up, guys? SterlingRider here. As we have planned, we are here starting off the NASCAR podcast. We finally had the first race that kind of kicks off the season, but not an actual seasoned race with the clash at the Coliseum. So, got my father here. I believe we finally agreed on a name for him, Smooth Rider. um,
Yep, buddy.
so, as you can see, we are not in the same room this time. Having to use Discord, so big shout out to Discord for what they do to let this happen. Took me forever to figure out how to record this. I was very frustrated trying to figure it out, but hey, I got it. So we are here. So we're gonna talk about the Clash, first race of the NASCAR season, a non-playoff points race, just kind of a fun Kickstarter. I'll start off real quick. Props to NASCAR because I had to move it from today, which is Sunday as we're recording this, to Saturday, the day before. I was watching. Oh, timeout.
Out, out. Okay, look, let's talk about this because it was an excellent decision. But the problem with it is they've known the forecast for a week. This is a decision that should have been made before, according to Bob Pockers, they started talking about it Friday night. It should have been made earlier in the week because fans had airline tickets, they had hotel rooms, they had race tickets. Now, I understand, also according to Bob Pockers, that NASCAR is going to do some ticket refunds. They're going to do some vouchers for other races, but this decision should have been made earlier in the week so that those fans could have made arrangements with the airlines, could have made arrangements with the hotels, switched their reservations from Saturday and Sunday night to Friday and Saturday night, and everybody that had tickets for the Clash could have came to the Clash. I applaud NASCAR for making the decision because it wasn't but maybe an hour after they concluded the race last night that it started to rain. And it's been raining ever since. I mean, it's my understanding, looking at the radar, looking at everybody's posts on Twitter, it is still raining in Los Angeles. So it was a good decision. It was a smart decision, but a decision that should have been made a couple of days beforehand to allow not just the fans to get there, but some of the drivers said that had not having um, the races, the qualifying races beforehand was no big deal. But you had drivers that got left out because they didn't have a chance to actually race their way into the field. That probably had a chance, had a car that was capable of racing in the Clash. They just didn't get that opportunity because they didn't run the heat races and they did it with qualifying or with practice speeds.
Yeah, that was a
Anyway,
big
I'll get off the soapbox on that.
that was a big thing. Is it basically canceled out all the heat races, which kind of threw qualifying just kind of randomly thrown up. Um, because I started watching it. I think it was Group B. I started when I got into watching it, the broadcast, because I was like, oh well, I should probably pull up the broadcast once I saw um, the news. Once you texted me the news, and then I saw it on Twitter, I was like, I should probably pull this up because I need to listen to this.
Yeah, they
So
had already started by the time we got the news.
yeah, it kind of sucks because there were a lot of I've got it in my notes. We'll get to it in a little bit. There were some good drivers that were left out because of the way they had to
Oh man.
reschedule it. But yeah, I agree. They should have made it earlier, especially for the fans. The fans had plans for things. You know, there could, it's not cheap, especially being in LA. Um,
Mm-mm.
so the yeah, but it
Well, I
was.
will applaud NASCAR for making the decision. I just think the decision should have been made earlier in the week because the forecast did not change.
Yeah.
It's rain through Wednesday, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So they've known about this. I understand they've got to work with the TV networks. They've got to work with the city. Because they've got to work with the police and the EMS system and all that. I understand that there's logistical things that they've got to work around. But when you start making plans earlier in the week to work those logistics in there, you can get it in there. But good decision to get it done and get it in. Otherwise, we'd just be sitting here talking about nothing because nothing would have happened today.
Yeah, pretty much. So, but yeah, that could have been a reason why it took so long, is having to work with the city and TV and all that. That could have been the biggest reason, but we don't know. We just know they changed it on us, and we were like, oh boy. Um, so I watched it live. I know you weren't able to. You kind of had to watch it today, but that's fine. You didn't miss anything really. Overall, to me, it was a good race. Kind of interesting how right before mid race break and at the end there it was pretty much a one lap shootout due to caution.
Yeah.
But so we had in the
Well,
booth. Well, go ahead.
the 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 only problem that I had with it, it was one of the better short track races with this next gen car. There was a lot of passing. We saw that with Truex starting in the back, Blaney starting in the back. Blaney finished top three. Truex was ninth, I believe, at the end, but he got his way up. He worked his way up to fourth at one point. So there was a lot of passing throughout the field. But when Ty Gibbs got out front, he was gone. I mean, it
Yeah.
was a 2.5 second lead at one point in time for a track that takes 10 seconds to go around. That's gone.
Yeah.
Uh, the only reason that Joey Logano even caught up to him in the second half of the race was because of lap traffic.
Yeah.
And it just kind of got to the point to where he just kind of had to push his way through to be able to keep the lead. But a 2.2 second lead at a quarter-mile track uh, either says that Joe Gibbs Racing really has this figured out, or they need to continue to work on the package for the short track package for this car.
Yeah, it was surprising seeing how, especially at the start, because as soon as they started Gibbs, so the first, I have the lineup here. Starting lineup, Hamlin was on the pole, and then you had Logano at second. Gibbs was in third, and then Bowman and Bush finish out your top five. And as soon as it started, Gibbs quickly went to second, which makes sense. He was on the inside, passing Logano after Joey was fighting for the lead. And then about lap six was everyone's single file, but they were all compact. Nobody had really gotten. Gibbs was right on Hamlin, so there was really no lead going. He was just in front. Um, So yeah, and then there wasn't much really a lot. It was mostly green flag. Um,
Yeah, the lap 71, I believe, is what I've got in my notes.
yep.
Uh, Before the first caution came out, and man, it was just it, I can't say it was uneventful because, like I said, there was a lot of passing going on in the field, so it wasn't um, an uneventful race. Now, the other problem that I really had with this race had nothing to do with the race. It had to do with the TV broadcast. Okay, first off, I think Clint Boyer, Kevin Harvick, and Mike Joy, tremendous chemistry. They did an amazing job calling this race together. They worked very well together, but there's too many in-car cameras shot. We spend too much time in in-car cameras and close-ups. Um, uh, there was one point in time where they're talking about Joey Logano, and all you could see is like on the right side door, you could see the second number 2 up to the front of the car, and that's all you could see. You couldn't see any of the rest of the track. You couldn't see any of the rest of the car. Um, but and there was a lot of those bad camera shots. I believe we missed a lot of the action and a lot of the race because of where they place their cameras, and they've got to do a better job at camera placement because with a quarter-mile track, there's no reason to zoom in on a car. There's no reason to have to watch the race through the in-car. Set a camera up on each corner of the on all four sides of the track, zoom it out, and let us watch the race. The whole race, not just a segment of the race that you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh well, I mean, I agree. I mean, especially with a track that's small, because you can view the whole track off of one camera if you aim it right. Um, but yeah, zooming in on one car is kind of like, because there were a lot of things, especially as we mentioned at the beginning. Um, Blaney had ended up there. Truex ended up there. These were people that started in the back.
Missed all that.
Yeah, we didn't see any of that. I didn't realize Blaney was up there until the last restart to end the race.
Exactly. And they mentioned it briefly, but we didn't see it on camera. I mean, you want to talk about watching the race? We didn't see Truex passes. We didn't see Blaney passes. They talked about it, but they never showed them.
Yep.
But on lap 71, we got the caution for Todd Gilliland. He lost his brakes.
Yep.
And right before that, just a few laps before that, I want to say, Mike Joy mentioned that this is it was the longest green flag run in the 3 years of the Clash.
Yep. He did.
So, of course, the first year they had a lot of cars breaking.
Yeah.
It wasn't people causing wrecks. It wasn't people spinning out. It was pieces on the cars breaking. But it was the first race with the next gen, so we kind of expected that. But that put Todd out of the race. He lost his brakes, and uh, again, we got to go back to Fox. At this point, when this caution came out, and they had it on lap 71, and then a few laps later, they had Don Hunter Nemechek spinning out, and they were on their countdown ticker had it on lap 76.
Yep.
So they were wrong because NASCAR said that they were on lap 75. They had not yet completed lap 75. So again, Fox has to work on that.
Yeah. That was because
They had another car.
I'm sure, especially from my perspective watching it, I was like, okay, that even though there's the caution, how John Hunter had spun, that's the end. We're at the mid race break, right? But then, like Mike Joy said, um, we're wrong. We hadn't completed that lap 75, so we technically had to do a one lap shootout, which was quite interesting to watch. Because a good amount went for it. Biggest one I have in my notes is Larson. He was in fifth, and then he zoomed into second on that final restart
It,
before the midway break.
absolutely. I mean, in one lap, he went from fifth to second. So again, there's passing going on the short tracks. And the only reason I think that we saw it is because it happened in the front. If he'd have went from 10th to 5th, we never would have known about it.
Yep.
But during the first half of the race, Blaney and Truex drove up 12 spots from where they were. And, um, you know, when you talk about how they qualified for this race, Ryan Blaney, they took the 23rd position, was the highest points finisher not locked in. And of course, Blaney got that because he's past champions. So obviously, he was the highest in points last year. So he started dead last.
Yep.
Passed 12 cars in the first half of the race. And again, a quarter mile, so it really didn't take them long to start lapping people. But I thought I thought Blaney and Truex both did a masterful job because not only did they pass 12 cars, but when they showed their cars on camera, they were flawless. I
Yeah,
mean, they
there
weren't
was
beat up, banged up. It was clean racing.
which is definitely interesting. That just tells you the talent of those two because that's a small track. Yeah, you could take it three wide, but it's not going to be smooth. Um,
Yeah,
so it was interesting to see that how they had moved up so much and there was like no damage on their cars. So definitely showing good wheel skills there. So there wasn't much. It was pretty much green the whole race. There were at the halfway point. Obviously, we had Nemechek spin um, from getting hit by LaJoy. LaJoy kind of dug in a little hard and knocked Nemechek around. And then that's when they were like, "Oh, we're done," but actually we're not. So they did the one lap shootout, um, and then we were at the halfway break. I want to kind of pause. This was funny to me. Um, During the halfway break, during commercial break, okay, I saw probably one of the goofiest commercials ever. Talking about a show. So like what is it? The Bachelor and the Bachelorette. You know those shows, right? Okay.
yeah.
So this made me literally laugh, and I fell over out of my chair from watching this. Farmer Wants a Wife show. I know it's nothing part of NASCAR. I just thought it was hilarious how they're like, can these city girls live up to a farmer's expectations? And I was like, probably not. So I thought it was
No,
funny. Just a little side comment there. I thought it was hilarious. I was like, this sounds like a show I would watch just to laugh at. Um,
that's crazy. I missed
but
that because, like you said, I didn't watch it live, and so I was fast forwarded through the commercials. I may have to go back and pull it up on the DVR and look for that commercial because
it,
that sounds like that would be funny.
it was pretty funny. Just the commercial, the little trailer for it. I was like, I would watch this. I know it's scripted, whatever, but it was just hilarious. I
Yeah,
was like, this
that's
seems like a
cool.
show I would participate with, but
Yeah. It, back to the halftime break, I got to give Fox credit here. I do give credit where credit is due. And I already talked about Mike Joy and Kevin Harvick and Clint Boyer being really doing a great job in the booth. Pit road reporters with Regan Smith and Jamie Little, awesome, telling the stories of pit of what was going on pit road. Um, from a they both cover the sport. They've both been covering the sport for a while. Regan's a former driver. Jamie's been doing this forever. Um, Excellent job pit reporting. I've never really had a complaint about Fox or NBC's pit reporting. Um, I've had some complaints about the lower series with the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series commentary in the booth, but their pit reporting is absolutely outstanding. So good job, knocking the dust off for Regan Smith and Jamie Little. Um, because we knew what the front runners were doing. We didn't have to worry about it. We didn't have to wonder about it. I mean, they were right there. They were on top of it, just like they always are.
yeah, I definitely agree. They did an amazing job. Especially during the halftime break, they were talking about the cars, talking with the drivers. They brought what we needed to know. They updated us on what we didn't see from the broadcast itself, which was really helpful. It's like, okay, so these cars are getting damaged. They're coming through or they're back there, or whatever it may be, because we didn't really see it on the track, so they had to, yeah,
Talk about it. Yeah.
yeah.
Did
So
you notice? And they pointed this out later in the broadcast. I don't think they showed it during the halftime, but Ricky Stenhouse got out of his car and went and had a conversation with John Hunter Nemechek during the halftime break. Apparently, there was some hurt fenders and hurt feelings. But
If
that's not the
hated.
last we're going to talk about Ricky either.
No, I know it's not. as as we view him as Wreckham Ricky. So just so you guys
Yeah,
know, um, anytime he's pretty much caused the caution, you know. Um, my grandfather would disapprove. He calls him Tricky Ricky, but I don't think it's very tricky if you're just wrecking the field. That's my. I just got to be honest with you. Um,
well,
yeah.
then they started talking about, they're not even, the cars weren't even on the track, and they started talking about, they show the radar, and we're not sure if we're going to get the rest of this race in when you look at the radar.
Yeah, that was a big thing. Was weather. I remember kind of getting back once we restarted back. I remember during one of I don't have it in my notes, but there was a time where Kyle Busch's team was actually talking about the weather, thinking it could
Yeah,
possibly be a big factor in the race earlier than expected.
I
With
think that was the big caution with Wallace and LaJoy, McDowell, and Chastain when uh, I think it was Rusty. Hello, Bubba. Bubba got spun out, and it really didn't collect anybody. They just, nobody hit anything, but they had to stop on the track. I think it was when they really started talking about weather, and that was also right after Chase Elliott had his problem on the track. So um, when you start talking about weather coming in, it starts ramping up what drivers are doing, and we started seeing a lot of bumping and banging,
oh
a lot
yeah,
more bumping.
definitely.
Um,
um,
yeah, there was some tempers going on that second half of the race. That's
I
for sure. Of course, I'm sure we'll cover it all, when we do the race wrap up. But yeah, there was some tempers that boiled over into the garage after the race.
there were indeed. So I kind of skipped over it, but I recorded the credit one ones to pick that the guys in the booth did, um, which is interesting because none of them that they picked won. Because Boyer had picked Larson, Harvick picked Gibbs, um, and Mike Joy had picked Truex Jr., which were all good picks because they were all up there, especially Truex, the way he'd been weaving through the field, getting up to the towards the front. Um, but yeah, Larson, I don't even remember where Larson finished. Fifth?
I think he was fifth or
He
sixth.
he finished fifth, and Truex had finished ninth.
Yeah, I don't have the rundown with me.
So I just took a picture of it because I was multitasking at the end of the race. Um, but before we really get to the finale, because there was still a couple, like we just talked about with McDowell and Chastain and those involved in that wreck. That was with 10 to go. So at that restart, Logano got dumped. He was in the lead at that time, and Hamlin took the lead over.
And that was also, um, of course, I'm not going to complain when Logano gets bumped out of the lead. That does not, for you Logano fans out there, sorry, that does not hurt my feelings. Um, and I, I want to say that's really when Ty lost the race too, because once Hamlin got out front, it wasn't that Ty couldn't stay with Denny. It's just Ty couldn't pass him. He couldn't get close enough really to pass him. Denny didn't drive off and leave him, but he was far enough ahead that Ty just couldn't get him. And um, with all the restarts, Ty lost quite a bit of track position.
Yeah, because Gibbs
But I
had
think
the
that's when
lead.
he had to play.
Gibbs had taken the lead back on the restart after Wallace had gotten spun, and he held it. He even took off, as we said earlier. He had 2.5 second lead and then some. until lap 140 when McDowell got spun, and that was kind of like the heartbreak because he had such a good lead, even with going through traffic. Even though he had lost a lot of that lead through traffic, he was still a good amount of ways because he tried to keep a car in between him and second place, which I believe was Logano at that time, um, to keep the lead. So. But once lap 140, once we had McDowell get spun, trying to pass Chastain, because Chastain had hit the wall and then hit McDowell, spinning him. On that restart, Logano had gotten dumped and Hamlin took the lead from Gibbs. And that was just kind of the point of where, okay, um, Gibbs is going to have to fight if he's going to um, take it back. And then um, with 4 to go, Gibbs had slid back into second, and then Busch had gotten under and passed Logano along with Blaney following. So that was your 1, 2, 3, 4: Hamlin, Gibbs, Busch, Blaney. And then this was when I was like, where did Blaney come from? He was in the back, and I
Yeah.
hadn't seen anything about him. They mentioned him at halfway break with it. With him and Trix were moving up, and then it's like, oh, now he's in the top 5, and I didn't really see anything on it until pretty much that point when I saw him follow Busch, passing Logano. Um, so that's just kind of where Fox, come on now, kind of, you do great, but at the same time, there's always room for improvement.
If
Um,
you've got the driving through the field like that, you've got to cover it. You've got to put him on camera. You've got to talk about it. You've got to show the passes. Even if it's a picture in picture type thing, you've got to show the champion making passes and coming to the front. You just got to.
yeah, I would agree because especially so we have the new packages, especially on the short track path, and then you're seeing the team. Normally, when the season starts, the team with the most momentum is going to be the championship team. You can't just ignore that, especially with the way Blaney was moving through this traffic and had ended up to fourth with just a few laps to go. You can't ignore that. You got to cover stuff like that because that's important. People are gonna wonder, where's the 12? He won the championship. You'd think he'd be up here. Even though it was interesting seeing how he had to use the driver's points to get into the race. Um, just you could tell that momentum was still with him because he moved up to top 5 with just a few laps to go.
Yeah. And again, this is where not having the heat races comes into play, because I think Blaney would have been, with the speed that his car had, he'd have been a top 10, if not top 5 starter, had they been able to run the heat races.
Yeah, definitely. Um, so once at that point, it was pretty much green until sadly we pretty much go into overtime. With 1 to go, Gibbs sadly gets spun out from Larson, which was actually a heartbreak because I was actually, this is weird. If you've watched our preview podcast, I'm not really a Gibbs fan, but I was rooting for Gibbs, mostly because he wasn't Denny Hamlin, but I was rooting for him because he was showing good potential on that track, especially when he got the lead and took off. I expected him to win it, but sadly, when he got spun around, that was the end.
Well, and Gibbs has proven he's a great short track racer. I believe it was Jeff Gluck on Twitter last night during the race, or X, or whatever you want to call it. I'm still going to call it Twitter just because, did it for so long. But I believe, because I did follow along with the race on Twitter, and all that. I think it was Jeff Gluck that pointed out that he did lead 120 laps in the Bristol night race last fall. So he has proven that he can drive this car on a short track, and then again he proved it again in the class. So yeah, that was kind of a I really hated to see that for him. And I'll be honest with you, I listened to his interview after that Bob Pockris posted after the race, and the maturity that he talked with in that interview versus the immaturity that he had the year that he was in, that he won the Xfinity Series championship a couple of years ago. Um, Listening to interviews then compared to listening to the interview that Bob Pockris posted, he has matured a lot, in the way he talks, in the way he carries himself. He wasn't saying stupid stuff like he would have in the past. He was to the point. He was calm, cool, collected, heartbreaking. You could tell that you could hear the disappointment in his voice, but it was a very mature interview. So Ty, that's how he's going to get fans. We love the aggressiveness on the racetrack. We just don't like the childness, the childless, the help me out here.
Um, uh,
We don't like the childish actions off the track.
yeah,
Uh, race hard on the track. Don't act like a 3-year-old off the track.
yeah, I'd agree. Um, which kind of because we go into overtime after Gibbs is spun, and basically green white checker. Hamlin wins the clash, holding off Bush and Blaney. Bush finishes second. Blaney, or wait, am I backwards? Nope. But yep,
No,
Bush
Blaney
finished
got
second.
third, right.
Blaney had third. And then so kind of like that childlike attitude when off the track, Hamlin basically in his victory speech was like, "I beat your favorite driver again."
Well, that's because he was getting booed. He was getting booed out of the Coliseum. I mean, and Denny, if you listen to Denny's podcast, Actions Detrimental, um, he's one of those that he doesn't care whether you boo him or you cheer him as long as you're making noise. And he's got no problem being the villain. He's got no problem wearing the black hat. Um, he embraces it. And to be honest with you, it kind of makes me want to like him. That kind of makes me want to like him. But because he started saying this last year. I believe it was when he won at Pocono that this happened. Um, and this time he added, "I beat your favorite driver again."
Yeah, yeah, he did. Um,
Uh, and it kind of, between Gibbs and Hamlin, it kind of showed uh, Toyota's got a little something this year.
oh yeah, I would
Uh,
agree.
on the short tracks. Now, when we get to the intermediates, the mile and a halves, when we get to the super speedway, they're always tough on the super speedways, but just because you're strong on the short tracks doesn't mean when you get to Charlotte and Texas and Kansas that you're going to be dominant. Of course, Toyota's been dominant at Kansas for a couple of years now, so we'll
Yeah,
just have to wait and see.
yeah. Um, I respect Denny. He does a lot, especially he's a Cup driver for Joe Gibbs. He's co-owner of 2311, along with Michael Jordan, and then he had surgery during the off season. During the halftime break, there was a interview between him and Michael Waltrip, and you could see him in a sling. Respect that he recovered from that and then goes out and wins the first race coming back into the season. And then, he's already piled up so much just being a driver and then being co-owner. You can tell he enjoys it, and he's constantly busy from all of that put together.
And
So
he's a dad, and he's married, and he does a podcast. So yeah, you talk about having a full plate. He's got, not only does he have competition meeting for Joe Gibbs, he's got competition meeting for 2311, and he's got competition meetings with his daughters. He's got a competition meeting with his fiance. I mean,
so he's a
he's
very
got to
busy
deal with
person.
them.
So, but yeah, a lot of respect to him. I don't want to see him win, but I like to see that he's succeeding when he's constantly busy. Um,
As long as he keeps that goose egg on the championship column, we're good.
one of the biggest things I know during the halftime break when he was doing the interview with Michael Waltrip, one of the things said was he's looking for wins. He's not necessarily looking for the championship because there are people with championships that only have 10 to 15 wins. But he's part of the he has more than 50 wins. He's trying to get to 60, and he'd rather go out on a lot of wins than a championship. So another respect to him. He's not aggressive for the championship. He is, but he isn't. He's more aggressive for the win. He's not exactly aggressive for the championship. Um,
And he's got one crown jewel, as we call him. He's got one crown jewel left to win. He's got 3 Daytona 500 wins. He's won the Coca-Cola 600. He's won at Bristol. He's won at a lot of tracks. He has yet to win the Brickyard 400. They're going back to the Oval this year. He doesn't have to deal with Kevin Harvick taking him away like he did in I think it was 19 and 20. I think it was 2020 where Denny was leading with on the last lap and hit the wall. If I want to say it was 2020 if I remember correct,
I believe
and
so.
um, Kevin took it away from him. He doesn't have to deal with Kevin in the field anymore. So he has an excellent chance. And not every driver that has a championship, like you said, not every driver can say that they have won all of NASCAR's biggest races. Of course, 3 Daytona 500s, you're not a slouch in the driver's seat, that's for sure.
No, no, definitely not. So yeah,
He can
that's
have 2 of them, but he needs to give 2017, I believe it was, back to Martin Truex.
so yeah, that's pretty much the race. So the top 10 was Hamlin wins, and then we had Bush at second, Blaney third, Logano in fourth, Larson in fifth. So that was your top five. And then we had Bowman in sixth, which I was kind of surprised because Bowman was super quiet last season, not much going on. And then he was top 10 almost all of the race. Fox didn't really say anything about it. But I kept tabs on I at least kept tabs on who stayed in the top 10 most of the race. So it was interesting to see him there. Um, I know there's rumors going around about him having an injury from last season. So seeing him up front, I know it's just a
Yeah,
short track.
he was out of the car for a few races because of his back, and when he came back, I mean, um, he said he was 100%, but the results, I kind of think he was driving injured. Denny actually addressed that on his podcast,
Hmm.
because Denny kind of went through a very similar incident quite a few years ago, where Denny messed up his back, and he said when I got back in the car, it took me a long time for it to feel right, and I kind of think that's the same thing that Alex had going on, but because of sponsors, because of all of the expectations, I mean, he couldn't stay out of the car the whole year. He just couldn't. So, but this could be a make or break year for Alex. I believe he signed for the next couple of years. I can't remember when his contract was up, but contracts aren't. Contracts can be bought out.
Yeah.
Uh,
As we said in our preview podcast, if y'all haven't seen it, I'll have it in a link below. It's on YouTube. Just go check it out. We believe Bowman's one of the drivers who's most likely on the hot seat. Um, just because of last season. He normally last season was the first season, but he's normally been that he didn't, but he's normally been 1, 2 wins at least per season, except for last season. Mainly we believe due with his back problem. So, but who knows? This is the Clash. It's a short track. Maybe we'll see him do something down the line. Um, but it was good to see him up front, especially after being dealing with an injury. I'm sure having the off season to heal and not have to worry about getting in a car every week definitely helped with relaxation and healing. So yep, Bowman finished in sixth again. Good job, man, coming back. And then we had Briscoe in seventh, Keselowski finishing in eighth. That was interesting because he kind of during the group qualifying, as they called it, he did not make it until the very last lap, and they actually had to address that afterwards. They were like, "Oh, Keselowski made it in,"
Yeah,
and then
he,
seeing
he
him,
barely made it.
he barely made it, and then he finished top 10. So he's as they've said in the broadcast as well. He's brought a lot. I'm sorry, I'm shaking the camera. He's brought a lot to RFK. He's grown that team. Chris Buescher going out and getting 3 wins last season, and then seeing Keselowski, he's normally running up front. If so,
Well, we
that
predicted in our preseason show, we predicted he would at least win a race this year.
yes,
So
and
he's off to a good start.
yeah, and I still agree, 100%. That it was interesting. Here in a minute, we'll go over some of the tough breaks. Some of the drivers that didn't make it. One of his teammates being Chris Buescher, kind of a shocker, especially with being a previous winner of last season. But like I said, we'll get to that in a minute. So, and then in ninth we had Trix Jr., and then we had William Byron finishing off the top 10. There was a comment made right before the halfway break that Mike Joyce said William Byron, all 3 years running in the Coliseum, he has not been outside the top 10. Um, I was kind of worried there toward the end, knowing he was kind of
Yeah,
possibly going to knock that out because I was like, oh, Mike, you done jinxed him by saying that. But Byron held on, he kept it, so he's still the only driver that has been staying in the top 10 for all races.
there's one that's been on the podium all 3 years.
Who?
Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch has finished in the top three all 3 years of the
That
class.
is that is true. So
And
Busch and
that's
Byron.
amazing because he did it with the 18 team, and then he did it in his very first race with Richard Childress last year.
Hmm.
So this year, him finishing top three, if anybody was shocked that Kyle Busch finished top three, um, that's on you because previous 2 years he finished in the top three. He was in the top five all day. I'm not shocked.
No, especially he's a big driver, big popular driver. He's well known. Um, so it's not a shock at all. I would say I was a little shocked last year when he did do it, being his first race with RCR, because RCR has kind of fallen off. I hate to say it because it's one of my favorite teams, but to see him kind of slide in with that equipment just shows he's a good driver.
Yep.
So
So, of course, we got Denny winning. That's the top 10. Let's talk about the back of the field for a minute. And when I say the back of the field, I don't really mean the back of the field. I mean tempers. We're in the first race of the season. It's an exhibition race. We've got the um, 54 and the 22 arguing in the garage. The 47 and the 34 going at it on track. There was the point where they were bumping, and then the 47 and the 42. And I talked about where Ricky got out of the car at halftime and went to talk to John Hunter Nemechek, and Mike Joy he was pretty blunt in saying you're not supposed to get out of your car at the halftime, but Ricky did. And then Chastain. And who was it? The Chastain. I think it was. Who was it that Chastain ran into?
let's see. He ran into a couple people, to be honest with you. Um,
Oh, it
he
was
he
Tyler Reddick.
yeah, it was Reddick. He had, yeah.
He said they're friends. They'll talk about it. They'll be good.
Yeah. Um,
And then Reddick said the same thing. They're like, he's like, I don't know what happened, but we're good.
yeah, Chastain, the biggest thing that kind of ticked me off was just he wouldn't move out of the way when he was getting lapped. I understand fighting a little bit, but dude, being a short track, just move out the way.
Well, if we were talking about a points race, if we were talking about a car that was multiple laps down, and the reason we say that is because we've that's happened. You've had a car that's multiple laps down on a short track that's just in the way.
Hmm.
And when you know the leaders are coming, if they're on the bottom, go to the top. If the leaders are on the top, go to the bottom. Get out of the way. Uh, in most cases, as far as this is concerned, I don't see where he did anything wrong. I mean, Ty Gibbs hit him and bumped him out of the way and went on by.
Yep, that is true. So, um, but yeah, so I'm actually going to throw in there now some of the drivers that didn't qualify, did not make the clash.
Yeah, some shockers.
So we had, as I mentioned, Chris Buescher. He had multiple wins last season. Surprising that he didn't make it into the clash. I don't really know what to say about that. Definitely a shocker. I'm kind of also going off of what Fox said, what the guys in the booth said. Chris Buescher is one of them. They also mentioned Daniel Suarez, which is
Yep,
also, I would say, is a shocker. He's normally a good driver, no matter where you are. Him and Ross with Trackhouse have definitely proven that they can fight for a win.
yep.
So
He did. He did go out and win the Mexico Series race
he did.
at the at the Coliseum. So
So
it wasn't the day wasn't a total loss for Daniel and his team.
no, no, not at all. So definitely props to him for being able to be like, well, didn't make the clash, but we're gonna go win the Mexico race. So good job to him on that. He didn't let the disqualification keep him down, and he went out and he won. So and then another mention, Austin Dillon. Yes and
I,
no. Um, he's typically good at short tracks, but I'm not really surprised that other people outran him in qualifying.
yeah, I'm not. I'm not either. I mean, again, a lot of these drivers that missed, and I would throw Suarez and Chris Buescher. Uh, there's some cars that probably made the clash that had they been able to run the heat races probably wouldn't have, just because the faster cars would have been able to pass them. But the way they had to do it and the way they did practice, these smaller teams and slower cars were able to sneak their way in.
Yeah, which definitely made the race interesting.
Yeah,
Because we had people, we had Justin Haley in there, driving for Rick Ware Racing. That's probably not a car I'd say would have made it in, just
no,
because of equipment issues. Um,
yeah, because Justin's proved he's a good driver. Um, I know that all the talk with Justin and Brad Kozlowski has talked about what Rick Ware Racing is going to is doing to improve their team. The jury's still out. It's going to be out until we actually see on track improvement. He fell out with, I'm guessing the equipment broke. They kind of showed him getting off track, worried he was going to bring out a caution. I don't think they addressed exactly what happened to get to have the 51 fall out, but um, Justin as a driver don't have anything to prove, but Rick Ware Racing has a lot to prove. And them making the clash, I think if they would have ran the heat races, I don't think he'd have made it.
no, but the way they did set up the clash, Justin Haley did qualify 10th, which was quite interesting. That tells you he knows what he's doing. But I think the
That was
biggest
all
thing, I think the
all
biggest
time.
thing is just Rickware Racing needs to up their game in their equipment field. If they can do that, they probably would be a competitive team just because who they have behind that wheel, the wheel of that car. Um, so, um, so there's two more notable drivers that Fox Sports mentioned. Austin Cindric, um, not 100% sure. I know he drives for Penske. I know he won the Daytona 500 last year. Um, but besides
20.
that, he won in 22. That's right, he did. My bad. Um, since then, you don't really hear of him um,
No.
at all. So I'm not really agreeing. Being in part of Penske, maybe I could see it, but as a driver himself, not really. Um, but another one I do actually, Christopher Bell. Definitely a shocker. He didn't make it in. He was part of the championship four, but it basically came down to um, since Ryan Blaney didn't make it, Ryan Blaney took it on points. But if he had made it strictly on time, Christopher Bell would have made it in on points. So definitely interesting how it came down to those two making it in on the points.
Mhm.
Um,
And then
uh,
seeing how well the cars ran, you got to think that Christopher probably would have been up there in the top 10 too, with Denny winning and Ty Gibbs leading all those laps and Martin Truex driving through the field.
yeah,
Um, Even if Christopher would have shot his shotgun on the field, I got to think that he would have drove up like Blaney did. Maybe not to third, but he'd at least been top 10.
yeah. I would agree. Just because Joe Gibbs is a strong team, they got strong drivers. We saw that. We saw that during the clash at short track for sure. But as the season go on, we'll see who's strong where and what teams got advantages. I guess it would be when it comes to certain tracks. But like we said, Joe Gibbs has shown speed at the short tracks, kicking off. Um, because you had Hamlin win it, you had Gibbs leading, and he had taken off when he was leading. You had Martin Truex Jr. weave through the field. So if Busher had been in there, or not Busher, excuse me, Bell had been in there, definitely would have been interesting to see how the whole team would have finished.
Yep.
Um, so
And the thing, the parody of the whole clash is there wasn't a team that had all of their cars in the clash. If I'm not mistaken, there wasn't one team. Well, I take that back. 2311, I think, is the only team that had
well,
both of their cars in the
Hen-
clash.
Hendrick had all four cars in there. Um,
That's
Elliott
they did.
Elliott just had an
Yep.
equipment failure and pretty
Yep.
much ended up in the back, which sucked. As being a fan of his, but
But that says something about um, some of these other teams is the fact that you had Spire with Corey LaJoy. They knocked one of the cars out. You had Justin Haley with Rick Ware. They knocked one of the top teams out. I mean, uh, you had some of these drivers that are sometimes not even top 30 drivers, or not necessarily drivers, but teams in running in the clash, knocking other drivers out. The one team that had no cars in was Colleague.
that is true. Colleague did not have any in.
So I find that kind of interesting that out of all of the teams that were there were only two that had all of their cars in the clash in 2311 with only having two cars. If they were a four-car team, they probably wouldn't have had all four in the clash.
Yeah. So I'm actually gonna throw in real quick. a driver I paid attention to, especially being a rookie, is Carson Hocevar. He was up there. Pretty much he was qualified until pretty much the last group qualified. He was right there. He had a good little cushion, and then as more cars qualified, he kind of got knocked out. But seeing that he could show some speed there on a short track was very interesting, especially as a rookie, being in the Cup Series. So shout out to him. But yeah, there was besides 2311 and then Hendrick, even though Elliott kind of fell out due to equipment. Um, those being the only two teams, it's surprising because there are a lot of, as we mentioned, like Suarez, Busher, and Bell. If they had been in there, that would have been just team advantages there. Having, because it's always better knowing you can have a friend um, on the racetrack, knowing
Yep.
that they won't intentionally run you over.
Yep.
um,
So the interesting thing that comes out to me about the whole conversation of the clash is there is talk that this is the final race at the Coliseum in LA. Whether that comes to fruition or not is still yet to be determined. But there has been some talk about taking this race international, taking it to Mexico City. There's been talk about taking it to other stadiums. Um, I'm not really sure where I stand on this. When they first announced it, I was like, man, this is just the craziest, dumbest thing NASCAR could have done. They proved me wrong when they did the Chicago Street Course last year. Um, I'm not saying that it was bad. They just there was a lot of things went wrong with the Chicago Street Race. The finances of it. This costs a lot of money to put together. It costs a lot of time for NASCAR to send people out there to build the track because they got to build the track and then they got to tear down the track. I mean, they just can't leave it there because they use the stadium for football games. They use the stadium for concerts and all kinds of other stuff. Um,
and on
I'm
top of that,
interested.
they did free admission on Saturday this year.
Yes,
So
which
they
which
definitely.
awesome. They had to move the race. Um,
So it was.
well, let's since you bring that up, let's talk about that for a minute because originally they weren't going to open the gates. They were not going to let people in for the heat races. And because of fan outcry, and even some of the media, God bless them, not all the media jumped on it, but some of the media jumped on it that, hey, this is a problem. They switched courses and they were going to let people in for free. They ended up, when they moved the class, they ended up doing that. Uh, but I still cannot understand their reasoning for not having it open to fans in the first place.
Yeah.
And they tried to save face in doing the free. And I kind of think sometimes NASCAR makes these decisions knowing they're going to reverse the decision, and they make themselves look like a bad guy, but then they're the hailing conquering hero because okay, we heard you, we're listening to the fans. I think they already had it planned to do in the first place. They just, I mean, if you're writing something out for public relations and you want to make something a bad decision look really good in your favor, that's the way to do it. That's for sure.
Definitely. I just
Uh,
I'm gonna throw in real quick. I wish they'd listen to us. Listen to the fans as quick as they did with this. I wish they listened to the fans saying that they need to put the number back on the car on the door, not by
yeah,
the fender. Um,
I spoke to two other fans this weekend in the process of what I was doing. One's been a fan about as long as I have, and the other one is a lot younger, and he's a fan as well. And both of them are in agreement. They just the cars just don't look right.
mm,
Um, And I got to tell you, looking at that new Ford Mustang and even the Toyota Camry, and of course I've always liked the Camaro. These are bad looking cars. I mean,
Mm,
and when I say bad, I mean that in a good way. These are awesome looking race cars, but they don't look like race cars because the number's right behind the tire.
yeah,
And,
I'd agree.
and here, I'm sitting here looking at some posters of the number 7 Hooters car and the number 28 Haviland car and the number 3 Goodwrench car. Um, those would not look right with the number where it's at. And the cars today still don't look right with the number where it's at.
Well, we can only hope that hopefully they'll change it back. It's only beginning of season. I don't see them changing it mid-season. But hopefully after this season they'll be like, okay, this
Well,
we
let's talk about why they changed it, because that kind of brings up an off-season story that we really didn't cover in our preseason, but it's a big deal because the deadline just passed, and that is the charter agreement between NASCAR and the teams. It has not been renewed. It is set to expire, I believe, at the end of 2024. Um,
hmm,
NASCAR can choose to not renew it, which means that teams like Spire, teams like 2311 that have shelled out millions upon millions of dollars to buy these charters, their teams are now worth pennies on the dollar for what they can get for parts and pieces. Um, and of course, the race team alliance is the reason that the car number is moved. It's not NASCAR's decision; it's the race team's decision, or the race team alliance's decision. Um, it's a PR stunt that has failed, in my opinion. And I come from a marketing and PR background, so it's time for the RTA to give that up. But listening to Denny on his podcast, there is a number problem, and I'm not talking about the door number problem. NASCAR just signed a huge, huge media rights agreement that's going to bring a lot of money into the sport, and the teams are asking for a chunk of that money, which I think it's fair for them to get. I'm of the opinion this should be a 50-50 split. NASCAR is of the opinion, rumors have, because nobody has actually come out and said what is going on in negotiations. Rumors have had that NASCAR has offered between 42 and 49% of the media rights deal to go to the teams. The teams are wanting at least 50%. I think if NASCAR had offered 49%, the teams would the RTA would have jumped on it. I think we'd have had a signed deal. I think we'd have been done by now. But this is a big deal that we need to address from a fan's perspective, because when they brought the charters into the sport, a lot of us were not really sure how this was going to work out. The value of it wasn't really, we really didn't understand the value of how this was going to work. We didn't realize that, just a few years down the road that these charters were going to be worth $30 million. And it was, we already had the guaranteed people, the guaranteed teams locked in. The charters just continued that guarantee. I've got no problem with that. I think they need to expand the field and expand some of the payout that goes to the non-chartered teams. But that's another story for another day. But if this charter agreement does not get renewed, I think we're going to see some teams shutting their doors
hmm.
from a financial aspect because they will have lost too much of the value. Um, Here's the thing, and I'll just go out and say it. I don't know if anybody from NASCAR is ever going to see this, but NASCAR, do the right thing. Give the team some money. If they're asking for 50%, Give them 51%. They without your teams, you have no sport. If you lose one team or two teams, no big deal. Somebody's going to come and fill that void. If you lose 36 teams, you got no sport. I mean, if you've got five, say Rick Hendrick decides to stay in business, and maybe Trackhouse decides to stay in business. That's six cars showing up at the track. Can't have a race with six cars.
No, no, you can't.
I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying logistically they've got to get this done. I read an article that says that NASCAR could repossess the charters from all these teams. Some of the lower running teams, maybe they should think about, Rick Rare Racing in the 15 car.
Yeah.
Um, but they've got to get this done, or I'm not really sure where that's going to leave the sport if they don't get this done.
Yeah. I feel like that charter will be a big thing, especially after this season. If that, but closing teams' doors would be, it would suck. We've seen it ourselves. Behind you when Martin Truex won 2017 championship, and then they pretty much had to turn around, close their doors. Losing a team in the sport, even just being a one team, sucks. But being one to two teams, it can be refilled. But if you lose almost all those teams, you're gonna lose the sport. And there's you. I can say from my own view, I would hate that because I don't really keep up with anything else. NASCAR is the one thing I keep up with big time. I occasionally keep up with the NBA, but uh, it's not to me. It's not exciting as NASCAR. So seeing the fact that it could potentially go away, I don't really believe that would happen, but it could be a main issue down the line with this charter being a big deal. So
I mean, somebody in the media, I can't remember who it was, uh, even mentioned that there's a possibility that teams won't show up for a race if this deal doesn't get done. And they were talking the Daytona 500. I think there's too much money involved in the Daytona 500 for a team to not show up. But they were talking about teams not showing up in protest of NASCAR not getting this deal done. And I don't know, because they're not talking about negotiations. I don't know whose doorstep um, this issue is lying on. I don't know right now who has the ball. I know it's NASCAR's court. It's that's that simple. It's NASCAR's court, but I don't know who has the ball. Does NASCAR have the ball? Do the teams have the ball? Uh, and maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe they need to be a little more um, transparent with the fans on this situation so that we know what's going on.
yeah,
They don't have they don't have to give us number details. They just need to say, look, we're here, the teams are here, and we're doing this to try to get there. I mean, what's going on? All we know is it hasn't been renewed. The deadline, the deadline extension agreement has passed. What's next?
yeah.
NASCAR really needs to come out and tell the fans what's going on. What can we expect? And who's got the ball?
Yeah, because keeping the fans in the loop will definitely put us at ease. Um, just because we don't know anything. If we knew things, we would feel better. Um, but is a good question. Who does have the ball? Because we don't know. It could be anybody involved. So um, I guess it's something we will stay tuned on. Hopefully, we'll get more information. I know you pretty much keep in to the news pretty often. I don't really keep up with it. It's keep up with the races. I'm kind of too busy to keep up with.
Well, thank God for Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, and Bob Pockris, Jeff Gluck, Jordan Bianchi, Matt Weaver, Adam Stern, and those are the main guys that I follow. Of course, then we've got the drivers that I follow and Dirty Mo Media and stuff like that. But those people in particular keep us very well informed as to what's going on, and they don't even know. So if the media that's in the garage and the media that's in the teams and talking to the drivers, if they don't know what's going on, because they've got to be concerned because their livelihood is wrapped up in the sport of NASCAR too. And they're telling us what they know. So there's not a whole lot of information out there.
So definitely something to stay on top of. Kind of sucks because you think one of those people would know, just because of how much wrapped into the sport they are. So when they don't know, it can definitely be nerve wracking, as I would
Mm-hmm.
say. So, but that's pretty much all my notes on the Clash. Super fun to watch. I watched it live. Uh, Commercials sucked as always. But other than that, pretty good
Well,
race.
and another kudos to Fox on that. The commercial breaks weren't the typical Fox commercial breaks. They weren't, you know, a break every 5 laps. Of course, when you go 70 laps green, you're going to have commercial breaks, but they did, especially in the second half of the race, they did a pretty good job, surprisingly.
Shockingly, because normally they're pretty bad with commercials. But yeah, good race. Kind of a heartbreak for Ty Gibbs. He showed a lot of potential for this short track. But I'm excited. 2 more weeks till the 500. Next week they're doing the duels at Daytona next week, correct?
Yeah, that'll be the Thursday before the 500.
Ah,
So about
okay.
a little over a week and a half. Next Sunday is the Super Bowl.
Yes, that's right. So NASCAR kind of avoids the Super Bowl. I could care less. I was rooting for the Texans. I'm a big fan of their quarterback Stroud. Big Christian athlete, and he's not afraid to share. So props. Um, whatever. Good.
Well, and I shared this on social media. I hope both teams lose.
If only that were the case. um, I'm not a Chiefs fan. I'm not a 49ers fan. But if I were to root for somebody, it'd be the 49ers because I want the Chiefs fans to just shut up. I don't care. I'm not a I
Hey, Clint Boyer would not get along very well.
the big well. Sorry, Clint, but the Chiefs football has been ruined. That we're going off NASCAR real quick. To me, just because okay, congrats to Kelsey and Taylor Swift on their relationship. Glad that's going well. I don't want to see Taylor Swift after every touchdown. Okay, if I'm watching football,
Oh,
and I've seen this on social media. There are a lot of people that don't. I'm glad they have a good, strong, supportive relationship, and I see it as it could be a marketing, help, because you're getting all the Swifty fans to football and all the football fans to Swift. Um, cool, whatever. I don't care. If I'm watching football, I want to watch football. That's just me, but I'm not watching the Super Bowl. Like I said, my team didn't need none of the teams I would watch made it, but y'all go have fun, watch it, whatever. Hopefully no players get hurt. Hopefully the game goes well. But I'm excited for the 500 for the duels and the 500 in the week afterwards. So yeah.
Yeah,
um,
let's get this green flag dropped and get this season going. I'm excited for the season. It's going to be uh, this season is we're going to go into this season a lot like 2022. 2023, we knew kind of what to expect. I think there's been enough changes over the off season that 2024 is going to be another year where you're going to have 20 to 25 teams that could win a race almost any given weekend. I'm impressed with what Spire's putting together. I'm impressed with, of course, we've got our top teams. I'm Joe Gibbs impressed me with the Clash. Um, uh, Ryan Blaney, it has impressed me with really going back to beginning of the playoffs last year up until now. Um, so the season, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. Um, there's some drivers that are going to win races that some people are going to be surprises. I'm not going to be surprised if Corey LaJoie gets a win. I'm not going to be surprised. If Ty Gibbs gets a win, I am not going to be surprised. I look for him to win on a road course or a short track. I would look for him to win more on a road course than I do a short track because there's seems like there's more road courses now than there are short tracks. But if Brad Keselowski gets back to victory lane, I am not going to be shocked. If uh, if Austin Dillon wins a race, I'm going to be a little bit surprised just because of how he's ran the past couple of years. But if he finishes in the top 15, if he makes the chase on points, if we don't have that many winners, I'm not going to be surprised. Bubba Wallace is going to win a race this year. Stuart Haas, we talked about it in our preseason show. We heard rumors of Noah Gragson going to the 10 car. That has obviously been confirmed. Um, Ryan Priest, but Ryan Priest is a short track racer, so he really didn't show me anything last night that I hadn't seen before. Stuart Haas is going to have to show us something. Gragson finished laps down. Josh Berry didn't make the race. Chase Briscoe did okay.
finished top
Um,
10, but so
Ryan Priest was Ryan Priest. Him doing good on a short track does not surprise me. SHR has got a lot to prove this year. Um, if SHR does not win a race this year, again, I will not be surprised. But if they don't, I could also see it going from SHR to HR next year. And I don't mean human resources. I mean Haas Racing and Stewart pulling out.
oh well.
Um, so we'll see. Looking forward to it.
Oh yeah. So we've got a week off, and then for the Super Bowl, and then we're green flag at Daytona, and so that wraps up our coverage for the Clash. Um, Thank you again for listening, watching. Um, Honestly, best thing to do with this is just set your phone down, go, I don't know, cook or something. Really, you're just watching two grown men talk about racing. Um,
You can listen
but
to it.
definitely, well, it's more of a podcast setup anyway. So just doing it this way because it's easier for both of us with the equipment we currently have. But yeah, super excited for the season. Excited to talk about it. Like I said, this is all new, something new. I was very excited to bring up to the channel. It was my dad's idea originally, and I was like, let's go for it because the worst we can do is really nothing because the channel's still pretty new. So super super excited. So if you have missed, I will have it linked below our preseason review where we recap the 2023 season and we give go over the 2024 season and our own personal expectations with teams, drivers, and then we even did a championship playoff picks. So if you missed that, that'll be linked down below. I'm going to let him take back over, tell you all the other podcasts, and also Circle B Diecast. Make sure you check out Circle B Diecast. They're big on our diecast collection. So it's big shout out to them. Um, this is all the non-sponsored shout outs, but if we could
Yeah.
get y'all to sponsor us, we'd happily take it. So uh,
So, Brent Powell, if you watch this, we would love to have Circle B Diecasts to be a sponsor. On top of that, we also have some Dirty Mo Media podcasts that I love to listen to. Actions Detrimental with Denny Hamlin. Whether you're a Denny fan or not, give it a listen. Door Bumper Clear. You want a behind the scenes podcast to listen to, check out Door Bumper Clear. Dale Jr. Download. You talk about some interviews. Man, he's got some excellent interviews on Wednesdays. I know he's got 3 shows during the week, but the best show is the interview show. They have picked up the Teardown with Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi with Dirty Mo Media. So if you follow them on Twitter, and if you don't follow them on Twitter, shame on you. Follow them on Twitter. But check out the Teardown as well. They're a lot smarter than we are. They're in the garage every week. But check them out. Check out the Scene Vault podcast. If you want to talk about some old school racing, you got Rick Houston and Steve Wade that were very well involved with the NASCAR Winston Cup Scene magazine. Dang, I miss magazines, man. I miss magazines. I miss trading cards. I've got some trading cards here recently. I found some trading cards that I had way back when that I actually got put in a binder this week. But man, I miss those kind of things. Be able to tangibly flip through a magazine. But I remember I had a subscription to the NASCAR Winston Cup Scene. But check them out. Man, if you're looking for a diecast, there's no better place in the world to get your Lino Racing diecasts than Circle B Circle B diecast.com. I'll get it right in a minute. If you don't want just the ARCs, because they sell the ARCs, if you want the elite first class diecast.com is Circle B does their shipping for them, does their website for them. I believe they're a separate company, but if you like the elites, check them out. I hate the way some of the teams are doing their diecasts now with their autograph versions. If you want an autographed Hendrick car, you've got to go to HendrickMotorsports.com, but hey, that's okay. I understand the whole licensing and marketing issues with that. So, but man, there is a whole lot of NASCAR content out there that's done by people inside the sport. You don't just have to take our opinions for it. It's good to have fans' opinions as well as media's opinions, because a lot of times media won't call it like it is. But we do. But we do have some sponsors, some actual, people that give us discounts and give us money and cool stuff like that. So I'll let SterlingRider. We can't say SR because we both have SR. I'll let SterlingRider take over and give the shout outs to our actual paying sponsors.
Yeah, so we have quite a few. There is Swift Grips. They help you with analog grips on your controllers, whether it be PS5, Nintendo, Xbox, um, whatever system you play on, whatever controller you use. Swift Grips. You can go to swiftgrips.com and you can use code SterlingRider for 10% off. And then, of course, we got my favorite energy drink. I always keep a tub on me. I drink this stuff at work. I drink it while I'm gaming. I've been drinking it during this, even though you didn't see me actually drinking. uh,
His
Dubby,
dad did it work.
Dubby works. My mom drinks it. She started drinking it. My dad just recently started drinking it. Smooth Rider. This stuff is good. It's super healthy. Tons of vitamins. and it keeps you energized without the crashing that a lot of other energy drinks do. So check out Dubby.gg. They also have an app. Check out their app for in-app exclusives. They just dropped their Dubby duffel bag. I've actually got one coming in the mail. Can't wait to see it. I'm super excited. They also have USA made in USA shakers. So go check them out, and you can use code SterlingRider for 10% off at checkout. And so something kind of new. I am now a brand ambassador for a small town company. I gotta pull it up on my phone because their name is long. So my dad's probably gonna laugh because of the promo code I use with them. So they are on Instagram. I can't really. You probably you can't see that. So go check them out. It's called Rankest Rope Ranch Wear. Basically your classic Western wear. They've got some basically some like livestock kind of merchandise, and then they have barrel racing merchandise. They just released some nice button-up shirts. Um, so go check them out. I'll leave their link, everyone's links down in the description below. So for them, you can use code SilverDuke15 for 15% off with them. So shout out to them. Thanks to them for letting me become an ambassador. I actually got a couple of things from them on the way. So super excited to start the journey with them. I've been with Dubby for a while and Swift Grips. I'll leave all the links down below. Go check out the podcast. Check out Circle B Diecast for your diecast, and check out Dubby. Check out Swift Grips. Like I said, thank you to all of them. Like I said, just go check them out. There's what are you waiting for? Go check them out. So uh, thank you guys for listening in. This is our wrap up for the Clash. So we got the Super Bowl, and then we got the 500. Super excited for the season. We're bringing this in. We're bringing a lot new to the channel. Here shortly, Smooth Rider, my father, is going to be doing some diecast reviews. Can't wait to see how well those go. Super excited to bring that in as well. The biggest thing we were waiting on was his name. Just, we finally agreed on something because I don't know. We're not best when we're thinking of things like that. So keep eyes out for that. Make sure if you enjoyed this, make sure you leave a like. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe because why not? It's free. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you know when I am live for gaming, and you know when the podcast is uploaded and when the reviews have uploaded. Just make sure you stay in tabs with the channel. Like I said, there's a lot coming on, a lot coming that's new. Super excited. So yeah, that's all I've got. Do you have anything else to say?
Y'all have a good week. We'll try to keep it shorter, but man, when it comes to talking NASCAR, talking racing, we could do this stuff for hours. We may have to just set a timer and get our stuff in.
Yeah, it's possible.
Thanks for listening.
We did go off course a couple times, but that's okay. It's part of it. So yeah, thank you again. Thank you, Smooth Rider, for joining. He's going to be here for every podcast. So get used to it. So thank you guys again for listening, and we will see y'all next time. I'm sure I will stream, but before the 500. But if not, we'll see you for the podcast of the 500. So peace out. Right on. God bless y'all. Y'all have a good week.